Hey, this is Anna Bevan Gravely with NCFREE, and I am joined by Judge Chris Dillon, who is running for re-election on the Court of Appeals. Judge Dillon, thanks so much for joining us. Is there anything you'd like to share with our members before we get started?
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. Well, I'm sitting here at the Court of Appeals. It's not very crowded up here, but but I've really enjoyed what I do here, and I just appreciate a chance to talk. I've been up here 8 years, and before this job, I was actually in community banking for a long time. I did that for a while, and decided to run 8 years ago because this was sort of a dream I always had. I thought it'd be kind of a good way to serve, but I had a lot of people come up to me and say, it'd be nice to have somebody that's got some banking and business experience to be on the court. And so I found that actually to be very helpful. I mean, we've all practiced law in the past, but I've got a real estate license and all that. I'm from right here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I always tell everybody I'm the youngest of 5 children. My wife's the youngest of 5 children, and we have 5 children. And so, and they're all about college age, and they've all been living at home with us since March. And so I'm very excited to be here talking to other people. So I really appreciate this opportunity. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll just dive into the questions. Which one of the current or recent U.S. Supreme Court justices best reflects your judicial philosophy?
That's a tricky question, and I don't mean it's because I think people have different ideas, and I would have had other answers in the past, probably before the last few terms. So I have a hard. I like something about all of them, and I don't. And I know I'm dodging the question, but I think,
no, that's fine.
But I think I can explain like my judicial philosophy, maybe more a better way to explain it. So, there's some things about Alito I like. There's some things about Thomas I like. There was an opinion that I liked that I think Breyer wrote on a case one time. It just depends because of just what I think my philosophy is, and I don't know. And my philosophy more looks at what a judge's heart is when they're trying to decide the case, and I have a hard time figuring out what's in someone's heart sometimes. And I know it's kind of not to dodge the question, but I'd be glad to answer in the way that what my judicial philosophy, if that would be helpful.
Yeah, you can go into more detail about how you would describe your judicial philosophy.
Yeah, because I think people will say, oh, he's a textualist, or she's an originalist, or living constitution. And I just think the truth is nobody is anything all the time, because Gorsuch was a textualist when he came out with his opinion the other day about the Civil Rights Act. And I think a lot of people who are originalists would think textualist and would mean the same thing, and that they would argue that he really wasn't being, and I don't know what his heart was. My view is I think a judge can approach a case in one of 2 ways. And I think it's the same way people might approach when they're reading the Bible or their sacred scripture. Am I going there to try to figure out what is God really trying to say? Or am I trying to figure out this, or am I trying to say, this is what I think, and so I'm going to look for the scripture that supports it. So I think a judge, my philosophy is, and I try to do the best I can, but I'm an imperfect human being with biases like anybody else, but I really try to figure out what does the law really say and then apply it. That's my job. If I think the law needs to be changed, it should be the legislature. Rather than, this is what I want the law to be, so I'm going to apply a textualist approach if that's convenient for me, or I'm going to attack, or I'm going to, or my conception of what a textual approach would be. So in my view, I think there's really 2 kinds of judges, or 2 kinds of approaches a judge can have. Are they really trying to figure out what the law says in a humble way, or they're letting their bias creep in and have a preconceived notion and just apply the rule that gets them there? And so I fight all the time to try to just apply the law as it is and try to explain this is why the law is the way it is. And if there's any remedy from that law, go see the legislature about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's great.
So I think a judge has to remember we do have power, but we need to do it with humility and realize we need to stay in our lane. Because sometimes if the jury speaks, and I might not agree with the jury, but it was a fair trial, I'm not on the jury. If I wanted to have a different opinion, I should have been an outcome. I should be on that jury. Or I may not like a law the legislature passes, but if it's in their discretion to do it, and then that's not my lane. I shouldn't be activists and change it. If the North Carolina Supreme Court, and I've disagreed with a lot of their opinions, But if that's what they've said the law is, I will say it could be argued X, and this may make more sense, but the Supreme Court has said Y, and I have to follow that because I'm on the Court of Appeals. So maybe go appeal it and see if they'll change their mind. So I think we need to be that's my role as a judge. So I think judges do better if they do that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so am I a textualist or whatever? It just depends on the case. I mean, so
That's
I'll
good.
talk about it.
No, you're good. What would you say the key principles of free enterprise are?
I teach a real estate transaction finance class at Carolina and at Campbell Law Schools in the spring. And I'm a real estate broker too. I think I'm the only real estate broker on the appellate court. And when I teach these law students, I think what's missing in a lot of law school curriculum is an understanding of economics. And so I really try to come at it a little bit from an economic standpoint. In my first class, what I talk about is there's an economist that was from South America, I think he's still alive, who basically said the reason that our economy in the United States is so good and a lot of the third world countries aren't, and he's a famous economist, and he wrote this thesis, is because real estate titles are certain. You can go down to the register of deeds and see who owns what and what your rights are typically. A lot of countries, you can't do that. So they have a lot of dead capital. They have real estate that will not get developed because nobody wants to go build a factory there because they don't know what they own. And it's just a reality in a lot of these third world countries. You don't have a court system that will vigorously enforce real estate rights. So to me, free enterprise is certainly, I think a capitalist system is what works the best. But I also think I'm thinking of it more from a judicial standpoint, is where your rights are certain. And so I think judges can encourage that by just following the law, because I think what people really want in the law is certainty. They certainly want that in real estate, and I think they certainly want that in the enforcement of economic rights. So I think, but I think, certainly free enterprises, I think a capitalist system is what works the best with, limited regulations, I'm sure, but, that's up to the legislature to decide, but we should be, but I think with certain people that can have certainty, they know if they build something or if they know they invest in something that they can enjoy the fruits of their labor, that kind of thing, and not be taken away by some decision that just totally changes the law retroactively or whatever.
Yeah. So in your past life of undergrad and law school, what sorts of activities, volunteer work, and jobs did you take part in?
Well, I guess before coming on the bench, I'll think back to law school and undergrad. I mean, I used to work for four summers at a summer camp up in north of Winston-Salem, and was a camp counselor, taught tennis because I didn't know how to swim or ride a horse. So they stuck me out there, and I had a great time. But toward the end, there was a board, it was a nonprofit board that ran this campground, and the director asked me to serve on the board. He wanted one staff person from the camp to be on the board. So I ended up serving on that board for 10 years. And that was very interesting because I was only 22 when I went on the board, and I was on this board with a lot of older people. And so I learned a lot about how companies are just, businesses run. This was a nonprofit business. But that was something that was very interesting. And in law school, I interned at law firms. But I've served on some nonprofit. I've served on a board called DHIC, which was originally called the Downtown Housing Improvement Corporation, which is I was appointed by the city of Raleigh, and it's a group that develops low-income housing in the Wake County area, which I thought was just real fascinating. It was it was sort of try to give people more ownership. If you give people ownership in the society, it makes better citizens of people. So that was sort of one of the goals there. So that was a big thing. Right now I'm serving on the Friends of the North Carolina Museum of Natural Science, which I enjoy. I've coached a lot of basketball at the Salvation Army and at the YMCA. I did that before. I did that when I was in law school. I really enjoyed that. So those sorts of things. And then when I was 30, I got married, and we had 5 kids within 6 years. And so they've kept me busy. And so I've done Y guides and things like that with them. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a lot of kids really fast.
Oh yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah, man. So what would you say has been your greatest accomplishment in your professional career and then in your personal life?
Well, obviously, I think professionally, I would say getting elected to the Court of Appeals. I mean, it's been a great honor. But I'll tell you what I've really enjoyed, and because people, and I talked to one of my mentors said, you can say that your great accomplishment is being on this board and that board and having positions of honor. But at the end of the day, he said, the greatest accomplishment is when you can have a real impact on people's lives. And the best thing about professionally being on this court is all of a sudden I have the word judge next to my name. And so all of a sudden people might care what I have to say or think. I mean, except in my own home, I guess. But I get the opportunity to mentor law students and law clerks. I have law clerks that work with me and they're in their 20s, and I have interns all the time. I'm the only judge up here that actually has an intern that went to that's a student at Broughton High School, where I went to high school. I speak every week when the governor's office, they have pages every week of high school pages. And they used to come by the Court of Appeals, but they didn't come by for like 5 years. And then when I got elected, somebody called over here, and I love doing that. So I love speaking to these high school students to inspire them maybe to pursue a law career or whatever. So I would say, I think what I personally find fulfillment in professionally is the opportunity to mentor younger people. And there are people in their 20s that are trying to figure out what to do. And sometimes they get down and they get overwhelmed with their job. And so I try to encourage them to encourage law students, people behind them, because they've gone through it. And so I think the things that you can do that can have a real impact on people's lives personally, I would say, truly, what I would say is my greatest, not so much getting elected to the Court of Appeals, but the opportunity it's given me to mentor other people would be professionally. You said personally was my effect. I mean, I would say that, I know it's probably an answer to everybody else gives, but just really my family. I mean, just to have these 5 children and I've just really loved raising them, and it's interesting, and just learning from them. And I did have a hole-in-one one time, so I like that. My partner didn't because he hit the windmill, but I didn't, so I made that hole-in-one. So I was really excited. I'm kidding, but I would say raising my kids. I mean, that my family, and and my wife and I just it's just been a joy. And we're about to be empty nesters. My oldest one's going to be a senior in high school this year, so we're starting to figure out what the next chapter in life is. But so that's how I would answer that question.
Yeah, awesome. And this next question, I actually really enjoy asking this of all of the candidates for judge and justice that I get a chance to speak to. But what do you think the future of the judiciary is? What changes would you advocate for, and why?
That's an interesting question. I worked in community banking, and so we were competing with other banks, and then I saw businesses competing with each other. And the thing about, and I only began working in the government when I was 47, when I was first elected here. I never worked for government. And I think a challenge, and I'm not saying this is everybody's attitude, but a challenge is our justice system doesn't really compete with anybody, because we get tax money no matter what, so we're not competing, and it's not like there's other courts that we're competing with. And so I think I would like to see the court system improve its customer service, so to speak. I mean, it's a way to describe it. And I think, we need to get a little bit better. I was down in a county courthouse about 3 years ago, and I looked at the computers that were down there, and it was like the Commodore 64 computer I hadn't seen a computer like that. And I think we're trying to innovate more, and we've made great strides in the last 5 to 10 years. I'd like us to see catch up with technology a little bit better and have the desire to do that, because I think it's a little bit harder for us because we're not competing with anybody really. But we got to have that attitude that we provide customer service so that people can have results quicker, so they can move on with their lives. If you have a dispute, whether it's a commercial dispute or divorce or whatever, or even a criminal trial, you can have quicker service, I guess, because I think we've done a good job up here trying to cut back the appeals time, how long it takes to get an appeal through, but we could do a lot better. And I would like us to see I mean, do it right. I mean, I had a friend of mine who, my boss, when I worked at the bank, had something on his desk that said, do it right, and do it right now. And I think, and so I know personally, if we have a date for opinions to be filed and we're close to getting one done, I push to get it done rather than waiting 2 weeks for the next opinion, because those are real people that are waiting for decisions so they can move on with their lives. And so I would hope the justice system can continue to be more efficient, and because business is becoming so much more efficient, and we're getting better, but I don't want us to lag behind too much. So I think for me, I think we're going to get better because technology is going to get better. Yeah. And hopefully more money will be spent so we can get better, so people can get quicker answers and they can get through. Because right now the justice system it's expensive to file a lawsuit, and people can drag cases out a lot of times, and that causes people that can't afford it not to really have access to justice. And so, I just hope that's where we're going toward. And so I would advocate, for technology improvements and things like that, just to strive to do that. And not feel like, well, let's just keep doing it the same way we've always done it, because we're not going to lose any business. And if we do, who cares? We're still going to get our tax money. I mean, if that makes sense. I've kind of noticed that going from the private sector to the public sector.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed this conversation and learning more about you, and wow, just how amazing your wife was with all those 5 kids so fast. That's remarkable. I'm apparently really focused on that. But thank you. Before we close our time, where can our members go to learn more about you?
Well, I appreciate this time too, because I do want to point out this is an important election cycle, because there are more races, appellate races, than there's ever been. There's 3 on the Supreme Court, 5 on our court, and I would hope people just consider voting for me, because we have 5 seats on our court, and we're the second highest court on the bench, and I'm the only one running for re-election. If I'm re-elected, I'll actually be the second most senior judge, and I've only been here 1 term, because we've had a lot of turnover. We lost our 2 most senior. We're losing our 2 most senior judges due to retirement now, and we lost 2 last year. So the other 4 seats are sort of open seats. But if they want to learn more about my campaign and like people that are endorsing me, and I've got bipartisan support, just go to my website, judgechrisdillon.com, and I would appreciate. And I just encourage people just to learn about all of us the best they can, because these races really are important. They really are. We are a co-equal branch of government, and I think sometimes we just get overlooked sometimes. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak to y'all, to your audience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you again. And I hope you have a great rest of the day, and good luck on the campaign trail.
Thank you so much.